Hello, this is Susan Hintz-Epstein, also known as Susan of the North. This is the first night of winter, and as we celebrate the Yule season, I want to honor also some of the old customs that I'm only just now becoming aware of. Mother Night is the shortest night of the year, and in the oldest tribal traditions of pre-Christian Europe, Mother Earth was said to give birth to the sun as he began his journey again toward the warming season of summer. We are living in times of turmoil around the world, and it didn't just begin with the pandemic, but that was part of it. But the results, as I see them, are people struggling to live together despite all of the differences we carry. And at this time of year, I want to put a special emphasis on our common humanity. The patriarchy that has sort of manipulated the wealth and the generational wealth and the different classes of people over the last 2,000 years has sort of, not sort of, fallen away from the respect of the earth as a conscious being. We talk about science. We talk about science as if only humans can know things, but every living being can know things. Consciousness pervades the universe. And because of the studies I have done all my life, and I love science, don't get me wrong, but there is a spiritual component to all of it as well. There is a mysterious component to all of it as well that has to do with our indwelling soul, our spirit, that part of us that just knows, regardless of anything we're told, that knows the truth of ourself, that knows the truth of our being on the earth, that is a living spirit embodied. And the runes are symbols that connect us to the divine, if we allow it, to consciousness. And I use some of these words interchangeably because they are, and they're so important. And most people gloss over them as, yeah, yeah, so what? But it's all part of the living anima mundi, the living earth, the living world. It's not about humans having superiority over every other living thing, but about living in oneness with it all, about picking up our own, shouldering our own accountability for how we treat this earth that is our home. I don't care how fanciful certain people get about going off to live on Mars, let them go. Maybe we can return to a sustainable balance of life on Earth if we start listening to nature and the spirits of the winds and the spirits of earth and water and fire that have to teach us so much. And we can listen to them. They have a voice. They can be heard. You can learn to discern it. The common thread is consciousness. So I'm going to do the runes, my weekly overview, runes of the day for December. Today's the 21st. I normally go from Sunday to Saturday, but we're going to go with the 21st today because it's the first day of winter. And I want to do something special for the days between next Sunday and the first of the year. If you are seeking a deeper connection with your own spirit, the runes are going to speak to that. So stay with me and we will get through this as succinctly as possible. I know that I'm quite passionate when I start talking about consciousness and the capacity of all of us to wake up and honor our own authenticity and spirituality. The rune for today, December 21st, and I'm going to hold with today as Mother Night because of the old tradition. And the rune that came up was the rune of the divine feminine. This is Berkano. It's also known as Berkta or Perkta. Berkta is the birch tree. Perkta is another variation of that, but is also associated with a very old Germanic goddess who is related to the birch tree, mothering, intuition, initiation, everything that the feminine stands for. And I know I talked about succinct, so I will try to be. But you know the expression, a woman's intuition. Women and men both are capable of intuition and logic, but a woman's intuition flows, I think, from her biological imperative to care for a child. She has to be intuitive. She has to be empathic to be able to take care of that child in a good way. So I'm looking at the divine feminine today in a good way. There's a promise for the coming year with the sometimes I have trouble finding words. Around the world, not just in the United States, but around the world, conservatives have been winning positions in government. And I think this is a fading of the patriarchy. You know, it's kind of its last vestiges of having power over everything. The beauty of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, when they are united hand in hand, is the sacred marriage. This is something that takes place inside each one of us. We tend to think of thought as the masculine and memory or emotion as the feminine, but really the two need to be married in order for us to be fully functional as human beings. The marriage of thought and emotion and the body that gives our thought and emotion the capacity to make choices and decisions in material time. So that seems to me an auspicious rune coming into the new year, the rising of the divine feminine, while still honoring the divine masculine. For Sunday, the 22nd, this is the rune Iwaj. This rune is always in motion. It's the trunk of the tree of life in the Norse tradition that is Yggdrasil. It's the tree of worlds. It's the tree of pain, where Odin hung to sacrifice himself to overcome his ego so he could take up the runes. This is the rune of our spinal column. It's just movement in any direction. It rises and it falls. Our moods rise and fall. That's worth noting because Monday's rune, Yera, is the symbol for the year and everything that a year encompasses. We're beginning a new year, technically, tonight, in the old terms, because this is the first night of winter. And winter ends when summer comes on June 21st, the two solstices. So Yera talks to us about the seasons. It talks about the slowing down and the need for taking time for rest and reflection during the winter months. But then the year quickens and it comes toward the sun and the time of planting and the time of giving birth for the animal life. You know, most of the farm animals have a gestation period of 9 months. So they are impregnated in the fall and then they give birth at the start, late spring, early summer. The garden too can be planted at this time because the ground is softened from the winter's freeze. And how you manage your garden and how you manage your time and manifesting the things that you want is like planting a garden and seeing it through to harvest time. And this rune is also about choice and consequence because it is in how we choose and in how we take care of the things that we choose that bring us the good things in life. And when we do not choose the good things in life, Instead, we might be operating from our lower mind, our passion, our addictions. This is when we get into judicial trouble sometimes. This is a rune of justice as well, because all actions have consequences, all choices have consequences. But coming into a new year, this seems auspicious. But we're dealing also with the connection between ourselves in matter, in the material world, and ourselves in the spiritual realm, and with the efforts of humanity to ascend. And this is challenging because the collective, the overall unconscious collective humanity, is overcome with the trials, if you will, and tribulations of having to deal with the conditioned mind. Some of the conditioning we receive from our caregivers as we grow up is necessary for us to get along in life. But some of it is things born of fear, self-loathing, things that come out of traumatic family upbringing, things that come from war, battles, scars that we're left with in accidents. And these fears are subconscious and they color our daily awakened mind that is not in touch with the higher mind that we can also access in our deepest levels of sleep. So let me make this note before I show you the rune. Yogis can meditate through the levels of consciousness so that they are fully awake at the level most people are asleep at. Meditation is a tool that helps us to evolve in and of ourselves, to become independent individuals in reaching for our destiny, and we become free of the laws of accident. Instead, we follow our law of weird, our law of Urleg, our law of karma. This rune is the God rune, and it's upside down. And that, to me, speaks to the separation that so many human beings are feeling from the truth and reality of spirit. Spirit, which is among us with your breath. Spirit was a Latin word meaning breath. And at our birth, it comes in, and we are given life until our last breath leaves the body, and the body returns to inert matter. So, in feeling separation from our spirit, to heal this, we have a custom of Christmas. We had Yule, even before the Christians adopted the Yule celebration for the birth of the Christ child. But one way to look at this is we're coming into Christmas, and we're coming into a time of the light of the world, when the light of the solstice turns again toward the longer day, the season of the longer days. And it is like the birth of the innocent child in you and in me, and the Christ child is mimicked in you and in me. And when we can turn this around through forbearance, tolerance, self-forgiveness, learning to hold our negative emotions and not express them, we begin to embody our light again in a better way. Remember the rune Iwaj that came up on Monday. This is about the rising and falling of emotions. When we are living from the root chakra, we are materially oriented, and we don't know much about our spiritual life. But as we ascend through the chakras, through meditation, we can meditate through the root, through the sacral, through the solar, through the heart, through the throat, through the brow, the third eye, through the crown, and we can ascend that way. And on Christmas Day, we are reminded with the rune Othala of how we can be fully rooted, embodied, at home in our own body. Now, this is the rune of home. Christmas is a time of being at home together with family and loved ones. It's not a cheerful time for everyone. There are elders who have lost their mates who mourn. There are mothers and fathers who have lost their children and who mourn. There are people for whom have lost their real home and they mourn. And it's a time, I think, I like to think of humanity as coming home to take care of humanity. You know, on Christmas Day, we have the Salvation Army push us for dinners, and we have homeless shelters that foster dinners for people to meet and gather and have a little bit of cheer. But this kind of feeling, this kind of goodwill, it's nice if we can feel it throughout the year and give to those who need when we have the resources to share it. Then it's about coming home not only to ourselves and our family and our loved ones, but to our all of our relations. The day after Christmas, I drew the rune or ruse reversed. When this is upright, it's a rune of physical strength, health, and vitality. But in this instance, it reminds me of those things that weaken us. I'm big on the topic of spirit today. This is the message coming through me. When we consider our wealth in terms of material goods, money, shelter, all the things that we need to sustain our physical body, it doesn't talk about the things that are the wealth of the spirit. When our time comes to lay down our physical body, or this is my thought anyway, when my time comes to lay down my physical body, I will have the wealth of the spirit to take home to God with me. I practice kindness. I try to be a loving person. I try to be centered. I know I'm not perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to do my best to be those ideals that I carry, to embody those ideals that I carry. And those will be part of my spirit when my life is over. When we don't have the things we need to take care of the physical body, we don't have the resources, the emotional strength, whatever it is, to honor the things of the spirit. And sometimes we need help from outside of ourselves. We can be that help. We can receive that help. It's a mutual exchange. In the Peruvian Andean tradition, the Pacos, the Quechua, they talk about Aini and Munai, which is today for me, tomorrow for you. My needs are met. Tomorrow your needs will be met. It's always a reciprocal exchange of being. Not, not as we carry wealth in this society in which the few people having the most wealth are thought of as somehow wonderful and good because they're the lucky ones. Not so, in my opinion. They're not seeing the generosity that poor people share between themselves. They're not seeing the kindness of life in the hard knocks of the street. I don't know all of the examples I could list, but I have seen the beauty of humanity. I've seen people helping other people. And I think that this is a message for our times too. Coming back into right relationship, not only with ourselves, but with the world around us. The rune I drew for Friday, the 27th, is Al-Haj. Al-Haj is represented as the crown of the tree. It means you're conscious, it means you're smart, it means you're in touch with the spiritual, and all that yada yada good stuff. But when it comes up reversed, some people say it means stagnation, you're not doing so good, you're funky. I think it just asks us to go back to the root. To go back to the root, I'm a creature of life here on the planet Earth. I have a responsibility to great nature. I have some responsibility to my fellow human beings. but I don't have to lay down myself and be a doormat either. So to go back to the root, I come back to myself and I find what's important to me, what I need for healing, what I need for happiness and joy. And taking this time to be quiet during this time of the year when winter is all around us. If we have the space and the time to be quiet and reflective, we can often come to a period of catching up with ourselves, assessing what has changed for us in the past year, discerning what we want to bring into life in the coming year. The rune I have drawn for the 28th, for Saturday, and this is the beginning of that sort of the 4 or 5 days of meditation I said coming into the first of the year that I was going to give. So Sunday, now Thij, is the rune of constraint and limitation. Your back is to the wall. You are challenged, and you are so far out challenged you might not know what to do with it. I have learned to welcome these times, even as I used to dread them, because they have always been a turning point, a learning point for my spirit and my soul, in which I can rise up to a challenge and overcome it. Whatever this means for you. Now, Thij is the bow drill. It's the fire that we need to have during the winter months to fuel ourselves to get through the toughest time of the year. Do you have fuel for your fire? Do you know how to start it? When you are backed up against the wall, are you overcome with feelings of learned helplessness, depression, anger that wants to be expressed but you're afraid to? These are all things to look at during this coming week. There's so much I want to say, but I don't want to get too wordy or too preachy. So I'm just going to be quiet and not put all my opinions forward. But I want, if you find yourself, or whether you don't find yourself in a time of your back to the wall, maybe take a time in which your back was to the wall and look at yourself. Do a little self reflecting and see how you handled that. Were you able to assess the problem and what you could do to overcome it? Was it a situation you had no power in and you were able to get help to resolve things? How did you handle it? Because somewhere in you, you handled it. You're surviving. Now, the rune for Monday, and this is the beginning of the meditation, it's shadow work if you want to take it up. If you don't want to take it up, maybe you don't have to listen all the rest of the way through this video. But this is year. This is the rune in the Anglo-Saxon Futhark that means death, decay, falling apart. Things are breaking down. It's not necessarily a physical death. But when we look at life going on around us and the challenges that humanity is facing, things are breaking down around us. If our back is to the wall, how are we going to get through these times of breaking down? When I was in the Gurdjieff work, my first teacher taught me to center myself and ground myself. And I learned through that steady practice that I could always come back to myself. I might not know what to do, but I could be in this moment. And in this moment, I could take a breath and I could hold it and I could let it out and I could do it again. And I could always feel a little more centered with each breath. My second Gurdjieff teacher, after my first one passed, taught me that I could bring my aura in. I could bring my energies that are scattered out with identification with what this person is doing or what I have to do next, or all of the courting we do out of anxiety to our daily jobs, our daily tasks, how people think of us, what I'm afraid of, all of these things. We can bring our aura in. We can disconnect from all of that. And that brings us to a different level of peace within ourselves. So even though things are breaking down and disconnecting, we can use that disconnection deliberately to come home to ourselves like we did on Christmas Day with Othala. Sometimes there's nothing you can do except admit that you can't control what's going on. And that's a very scary thing for our egos. So how do we deal with that? The rune I drew for Tuesday, the 29th, the 30th, Monday. I'm sorry, the rune I drew for Monday, the 30th of December. This is the rune Quiorth. Quiorth is the funeral pyre. It cuts us off from everything very, very quickly. When I was doing my shadow work, I used to draw this rune a lot, and it's not comfortable. But I learned to go inside myself, and I learned to ask my deepest self what it was that I needed to let go of in a hurry for my continued happiness and well-being. These past couple of years, I've been dealing with the grief from the passing of my husband, and I learned that grief has its own season. That if I can sit with those emotions and allow them to be felt through me until they run their course, I can master my emotions. In mastering my emotions, I became very good at living the bittersweet. I can hold within myself the sadness and the joy of any given moment at any given time. And I think that this capacity has led to a lot of inner resilience for me as I continue to move forward through my life and the challenges that I have at this time. So that's one tool. You can use Quiorth to sit with your emotions and let yourself feel them fully, knowing that they will come to an end. You are not that emotion. It's just something being felt through you. It will pass. It may come again, but it will pass again. You don't have to identify with your emotion and hold on to it as if it's going to be a forever thing, because it won't. Grief lessens. Time moves on. Life moves on. The flow of life moves on, and you become stronger for it. Now, the rune I drew for December 31st, Tuesday, which is New Year's Eve, it's another rune that stands for the gods. This one came along with the Anglo-Saxon Futhark. It's kind of, I regard it as an extension of Ansuj. This one is called Oz. This is Ansuj. They both came upside down this week, which speaks to me of a spiritual disconnect. When we are dealing with shadow emotions, we're usually dealing with the conditioned emotions and repressed emotions that we stuffed down inside of ourselves in order to get along in a certain way with a certain family or to survive some traumatic event. And at some point, they start to release themselves. You might be feeling deep anger, you could be feeling depression, you could be feeling, and when I talk about depression, I'm not talking clinical, I'm just talking about a sadness that is deep enough to call depression. You could be feeling fear. All of these things, as I've spoken about with Quiorth, if you sit with them, they will pass. They have something to teach you. You don't have to act from those emotions. You don't have to act from anger. You don't have to act from sadness or from fear. You just need to look at it. If you're willing to sit with it and look at it, what does it have to teach you? This is our disconnect. To be able to reconnect with our spirit, with our deep inner knowing that is our soul, our authentic self, we need to reestablish this connection. Sometimes we need to sit with our shadows and see what they have to teach us. I remember when I was reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and this is about how they read to a person who has died for 40 days. And each day they read a little bit more. And in the beginning, they talk about joining up with the light. Toward the end of this time, they're talking about how the gods take on a monstrous aspect and dance their dance of wrath. So we need to turn. This 5-day interstition that I'm reading the runes for is about turning and facing ourselves. So whether our back is to the wall with now thieves, or we are looking at things dying around us that we have no power over, or whether we have to face our own quick, rising funeral pyre, our internal fears, or those things that come up that we need to face ourselves. And it takes a certain courage to face ourselves. And if you're with me this long, congratulations, because it's a journey well taken, worth taking. But to reconnect with ourselves, to reconnect with our souls, it's as simple as taking a breath and being present to yourself in this moment, no matter what's going on, whether you're afraid, or whether you are angry, or whether you are sad, or whether you are feeling resistance in one form or another. That self reconnection is so vital to your evolution as a person, to your evolution as an individual, to your evolution towards independence, where we don't have to rely upon other people to meet our needs. We can do it for ourselves. And this is all about the process of becoming whole within. But take heart, because the rune I drew for New Year's Day is Sowilo. This is the rune of the sun. And this is coming back to the return of the sun. We've hit the shortest night of the year. From here on out, daylight is renewing itself. We can learn to find the small joys in every day, no matter what is uncertain around us. You know, I take inspiration from the people I work with. I have one family of 3, and they come from a larger family, but they're all working at this one place that I work at, and they take such joy in their family. Their family bolsters them when they need support, and it's just a beautiful thing to watch. And I have another person where I work who's always trying to do the right thing. And she does it with a smile. She's not a servitude oriented person generally. No, that's not the word I wanted. She's not a servile person. She's an alpha person, but she just strives to do the right thing, take care of her people. And that's all part of what my message tonight has meant to embody. You know, there's times when we're up, there's times when we're down, there's times when we need help, there's times when we can give help. We're looking at a new year. The world is entering some challenging times. People like you and I who care about the life of the spirit can maybe bring our light to bear on the world around us, and we don't even have to talk about it. We just be who we are. It's really all it takes. So I don't know if I've said anything worthwhile tonight. I hope that I have. I hope that I've said something that will resonate with you. And as we leave this time of Yule and head toward the new year, I want to wish every one of my subscribers, everyone who finds value in the runes, and hope that my sharing of them the way that I do is of benefit to how deeply these symbols can resonate with our spiritual pathway. So I'm Susan of the North. I'm saying good night on the runes. And I just want to promote myself for a minute. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be giving a talk on the runes as guides for daily life on the Wind Clan during Renee Barabow's. She's the author of Winds of Spirit. She does a podcast, Shaman's Cave, and I've been following her work since 2017. And I've learned a lot about the winds and shamanism and things from just being involved in her circle. But if you want to watch my talk tomorrow, you can go to Facebook. Her group name is Wind Clan, WIND space CLAN. And there you can probably find a link to sign up for the IAM symposium. And she has a host of wonderful speakers. She's introducing her own oracle deck, The Winds of Spirit, that accompany her book. She's got a lot of other good things going on too, but she has speakers like um, Phil Farmer and Evelyn Riesdick and Lori Lothian and a whole bunch more. Just my brain is not taking it all in right now. I have some preparation to do myself yet, but it's worth going to see. So go to Wind Clan and look for the place to sign up for the IAM Winter Symposium. And I'll be one of the people tomorrow at 10 a.m. Blessed you all.